What I'm going to introduce the two ladies who are here today, and then I would, turn it over to them. So let's start with Funke. Funke is a business and personal strategy consultant with over 25 years work experience in corporate governance and enterprise change management. Funke also owns Spas and Tours UK, a wholesaler of spa retreats and individual and group tours. She's an expert in reviewing and re-engineering existing business processes to address gaps and increase proficiencies while ensuring compliance with government regulations and global industry standards. She supports corporate and individual clients to design and manage a well thought through, consistent, optimized, seamless, orchestrated, and collaborative user journey across all channels of interaction with your brand, thereby helping you stay at the cutting edge of excellent user experience. Funke consults for Fortune 500 companies and individuals and has worked on large technology-led process efficiency programs, as well as personal strategy development for individuals in the UK, Europe, Africa, and Australia. Welcome, Funke, to the webinar.
Thank you.
Margaret Ogumbanwo is a foodie. She's a mother of two, and she's wife to one for the last 31 years. She's an author of one book so far, and she's the owner CEO of Maggie's, which is trademarked exotic foods. Her business is based in North Wales, and it had its roots in the outside catering trade, providing African-based cuisine in the United Kingdom at a time that this was not a thing, and has pivoted over the years to the small-scale production of African-inspired food products, adding an African twist to your everyday dish. Welcome, Maggie, to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. And so you have a lot to say. We only have an hour and maybe 10 minutes. And then after you present, each person gets 25 minutes to present. And then we're gonna have questions. We're gonna ask questions. Please turn off your videos. And this is interactive, so make sure you use the chat room and ask your questions or your comments. It's always good for people to type in so people know that they're participating. All right, Margaret, I heard you were the first, so let's go.
Hi, folks. Thank you for joining us. As has been said by Dr. Akin, I'm Margaret Ogumbanwo, and I run Maggie's Exotic Foods, or Maggie's as we've now trademarked our companies. So I'll give you a brief history, and then I'll go into Pivot to Heal and whether that is a new business model. Maggie's Exotic Foods started somewhere around 1997, but I would say that my first business I ran when I was 6 years old. That was shut down by teachers who just did not have an idea about business or about building up skills in people. So if you want to know more of that story, you can talk to me. But anyway, Maggie started in England, in London, as a catering business. And at that time, the only cuisine that was kind of popular in the UK was Caribbean cuisine. And there was a lot of Ken Home as well. I don't know if any of you recognize that. So I started at a time when what we were doing was not popular at all. My business has always been around food. So even when I was 6 years old, I started selling puff puff in school. My grandmother made the best puff puff in the world, and I believed so much in it, and I started selling it. But my parents got called into school, and I was given a severe ticking off, not by my parents, by the school. Okay, so at the moment, I run Maggie's Exotic Foods from North Wales. And as I'm speaking to you, I can hear a bit of a North Walian accent, which is really funny. I wouldn't have thought that I have one, but we've been here for 13 years. And when we moved from England 13 years ago, we moved with absolutely nothing, really. I had to shut down 3 businesses and move here, and we had nothing to do here. And we thought, oh, we would get jobs, or we would get things to do really easily. But that was not to be, because Welsh is the first language spoken here. So if you want to run business here, you have to speak English, you have to speak Welsh, or if you want to get a job here, you have to speak Welsh. So I did get a job. I worked in someone's cafe for about 6 months. And after that, I decided I cannot be spending this amount of energy and time on someone else's business when I could be doing it on mine. And that has always been the way of things. I've worked for a year or two in a company and I thought, I can't do this. I need to just go and put the effort in my own business. And so I left what I was doing, but it was good opportunity, those 6 months, to settle into Wales and to find out how things worked. So I left what I was doing and I started up a cafe, because people said, oh, we would come to your cafe. So in a place where people spoke mainly Welsh, and it's not that they don't speak English, but they think in Welsh. I opened up a cafe in a village of 2,000 people and ran it for about 4 years. Now, I've titled what I'm doing Pivot to Heal. So one of the first things that happened was, just before I opened my cafe, my father passed away, and he gave me the first, before he went into hospital for a routine appointment, he gave me £1,000, he insisted. And that's how, as soon as after he died, I opened up this cafe. And I think that some of the trauma of that, because it was quite traumatic, was lost, or I dealt with it by running this new project in this new business in a strange place. So after a while, I lost my sister a short while after, and I was still running the cafe, and I got up one morning and decided, ain't gonna ever do this again. I'm not going to go and open this cafe. Now, I run a small business from home. My home is a huge home. I live in an old pub. So we live upstairs and run the business from downstairs. And I decided, nah, I'm not going downstairs. I cannot open this cafe. And there began my my trauma and my mental health issues, as I call it. Looking back on it, I realized that it was depression. Now, if we fast forward to today, I am running a successful business in North Wales. But the reason, or the way that I was able to do this, is by pivoting. And when I pivoted, I began to heal. So I checked the meaning of pivot, and it's in the dictionary describes it as the central point, the pin or the shaft upon which a mechanism turns. So I considered myself the mechanism. Now, the other morning, I got an insight into this. I was doing some panorama pictures of the environment where I was working, and I stood in one place and I turned around, I pivoted. And what happened when I pivoted was I saw so many different views. And it reminded me what happened with my business. So if I start my story of the current form of Maggie's Exotic Foods, we manufacture African-inspired food products and non-food products. And the details of my website, I'm sure, will be given to us. And what happened was, I went into a real low state. I didn't want to do anything. I couldn't do anything. I was kind of paralyzed. And I remember somewhere along this paralyzing journey, I had this nudge. It was a strong, strong nudge. Now, I would say as a Christian that I had the Lord inspiring me, saying to me, you've been writing a book for 18 years. It's in paper form. Go and finish that book. Go and finish that book. I just kept getting this push. And here was a person who didn't want to get out of bed. So I decided, okay, I would get the book out and I would look at it. And it's really funny, somewhere along that journey, I met someone who was talking about how many books they published, and if I ever wanted to publish a book, they would help me. So somewhere in 2016, after looking at this book, looking at the paperwork and all of that, I had my first book published by a friend of mine, helped me get this book published. And I was so excited the day this book was published, 100 Things I Wished My Mother Had Taught Me. It is on Amazon. Now, I was so excited. I ran around my village. I ran into every office and house that anybody knew me and told them, look, I've written my book. And this was part of my healing journey. I just didn't realize at the time that this was it. But what happened after that was I then felt motivated. And so I decided, as the cafe was closed down, I needed to make money. So the one thing that worked consistently when I was running the cafe was having African evenings for people, for local people. So I decided to start putting on a few African evenings. And the thing about West African cooking, just in case you don't know, and just in case you haven't worked it out, food, I'm all about food and a foodie. Well, West African cooking has a lot of chili base in it. Other parts of Africa, maybe not so much so. But I couldn't give my people that much chili. So I started making a chili sauce to accompany every evening that I put on. And one of the days I made a chili sauce and I tasted it. Now, folks, I need to confess to you, I am not a very chili person. I do not like heat in my food. When I was growing up, my mother had to take me to the hospital because I wouldn't eat anything that was red, stew and all that. And it just turns out it was a chili phobia. Anyway, I made this chili and tasted it and I went, wow, it hit my tongue amazingly. And then after a minute, it went down and left a warmth on my tongue. I'm like, oh, I called my family to taste it. Their reactions were amazing. I served it that evening and the comments we got. So this was the beginning of my journey. In all this time, in having to commit once I made this chili sauce and people tasted it, they started saying, oh, you should get it out there on the market. You should get it out there on the market. Now, folks, I have to say to you that I went to check this out in 1987. There was a movie, Baby Boomers. I don't know if any of you is aware of Baby Boomers, but when I watched Baby Boomers, I said one day I would have my own production factory. And so when people started saying, oh, you need to get that out there, I decided that this is the time. So I started the process of finding out how to manufacture and get it on the market. And this was the healing journey that I went on. I had to pivot, I had to change, I had to turn my attention off the traumas that had come into my life, off the hardship that had come into my life, and begin to, because I had committed myself to launching this or to having this product, I put a launch date on it. And so I had to keep on the journey. I remember one day talking to a friend and I was really down. They were in Nigeria, saying that, I was just talking, it's one of my down days. And the person said to me, what's the next step you need to do? I said, I need to call the tech center and get them to test this product. And so I was literally, come on, okay, before you do anything, you call them, you book an appointment and you go there. I went through the journey of getting this sauce out on the market. There was a new festival that was being launched in Carnarvon, which is about 5-10 minutes drive from me. And so I had booked into this festival. So I was committed. I now had to produce the sauces and get them ready for the day. I started with one sauce by the time we came to the actual festival, Carnarvon Festival, I had 4 different colors of sauces because I'd played around with them. I had them nutritionally tested, microbiologically tested. So as much as I wanted to stay in bed and wallow in what I felt, I was being taken on a journey of healing and a business journey. And it all started when I was young. It also was cemented in 1987 when I said I wanted to start my own factory. And so in May of 2016, I launched what I called then the Ashake range of sauces. I had 4 different sauces and 1 chutney. Again, a friend suggested, if all of those are really spicy, why don't you make a chutney and add some of the sauce? So I did that. So in the current form of my business, you have the Ashake range of sauces. And in the first year, and I think I was still a bit down in the first year. In fact, let's not talk about the first year. In that first day the festival, I thought, oh well, maybe I'll sell, you know, a few pounds, a few £100, but let's see. In the first 4 hours, I sold out of my sauces. I had people coming to our setup, our table really, and asking for sauces, and I had run out. I was so exhilarated. I look back now and I see that I was pivoting, I was turning, my attention was being turned from what was going on in my life, or what had gone on in my life, to what I needed to do. And every day I was healing. Now, what I'm asking is this a business model? Will it work for everybody else, or will it work for anybody who's in that state? I would like to encourage anybody, because of the journey that I have been on, to say that no matter where you are, no matter how down you are, you can do this. Now, in the first year, I made more money than I thought I would make, but it wasn't a huge amount, because when I didn't have to make sauces, and when I hadn't committed to anybody, I would go back to bed. In the second year, I booked myself on more festivals. I was more committed. I signed up with Business Wales. I was so committed that I had to just get on and do the things that I promised to do. I had to deliver. I was now looking at shops. I was looking at outlets. I was going to festivals. Now, folks, part of my journey, part of the journey of change was that when we got to North Wales, part of my whole, whatever was going on in my life, I could not drive. I had an episode when we were driving to North Wales, which meant that I could not drive from my door to the end of my village. Now that would take about 2-3 minutes, and I could not drive. I had this whole fear thing. Part of the pivoting was that once I started doing the sources and going to fairs and going to festivals and going to shops and looking for outlets, I had to drive to places. There was no one to drive to help me, to take me there. At that point, I can't lie to you, I wished I was in Nigeria, where I could have hired a driver. But looking back now, I am so glad that I wasn't, because I learned to drive. It took me, we've been in Wales for 13 years. It took me 12 years before I could drive 2 hours to Manchester from my house, because of this whole trauma, different trauma that I went through. But I have to say that I pivoted in I pivoted in my life. I stopped looking at where I was and started looking at what was around me, started looking at the things that I had around me, the things that I had promised, that I said I would do. And with each victory, I got better and better. And I cannot lie to you, as we speak today in the time of Corona, I am living my best life. I am running Maggie's Exotic Foods, trademark the name Maggie's Exotic Food, trademark an African twist to your everyday dish. Even through these times of Corona, when what the major outlets for my business have all shut down, farm shops, delis, independents, what do they call them? Garden centers and places like that, not to mention festivals and fairs. But as soon as that happened, I began to, because pivoting, which is a new term that people are using, but I've been pivoting because pivoting had been part of my business journey. I started looking, what can I do? How can I help people? And I remembered that one of the things, again, in my history, and I will, you may not be able to see this, but I found this today. It has the date stamped on it, 6th of January, 1989. 6th of January, 1989, I wrote something that would be called a business plan now, of how I would run a cafe along with a deli, along with business. I wrote what chairs I would have. I wrote what cutlery I would use. I had the whole thing planned out. I've worked out that that was 31 years ago. And I also, part of what I wanted to do was teach people to cook really easily. So as soon as this happened, I thought, yes, opportunity. Go on social media and start teaching people how to cook, how to manage their food, and how to manage the things that are going on in their house at the moment, and teach people how to, some of the things, the book I wrote, 100 Things I Wish My Mother Had Taught Me. Every time I do a video, I end up talking from that book, because it was things that I didn't know that I learned that I wish other people knew. I wish other youngsters would get to know. So yeah, so here we are today. Maggie's Exotic Foods is on its way to being. I've always worked as a sole trader. This year we were registering a limited company. Everything is on hold because of what's going. But I'm so excited at this time. I've had a website for quite a while. In fact, my first website was done for me in 1997, when I didn't even know what a website was. But it's really working in my favor. I am getting orders coming in through that. I am building up a new customer base. We're thinking of different ways of doing things. So no matter where you are, you can pivot and you can run a business and you can start a business. And I would say to you that and each time I've started a business or run something, I haven't had huge amounts of money. I haven't had huge amounts of money in my hand. I have had, I think, with the day I opened the cafe, I had £50 in my hand, which was the float then. So you don't, my thing I would say is you don't need a lot to start a business. You just need to see, you just need to envision, you just need to start one step at a time. You just need to overcome barriers one step at a time and get excited. And the other thing I would say, which I found
Margaret,
out
2 minutes.
Okay.
2 minutes.
That's fine. The other thing I would say is that you should know what sort of business you want to run, whether you want to run a lifestyle business or a conglomerate. I thank you so much for listening. And if you do have any questions for me, like Dr. Aiken said at the end, you can ask me. I hope that has helped somebody.
Thank you so much. That was powerful. So powerful. You said so many things that we have to unpack. Hopefully we can ask some questions afterwards and we can and you can help us with it. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Please take it.
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Aiken. And thanks everyone for attending and listening. Like Margaret, I literally just started a business from my childhood days. I've always been that child that liked to make some hair ruffles and get them sold, like to make some hair baubles, earrings, and even when nobody was making things in the house, you know, I just really wanted to make something that somebody could use, something I thought someone would benefit from. So my background is legal. So I trained as a lawyer. I did a first degree in history, then did another one in law, and then practiced advocacy and solicitor's work for a bit, and then went into company secretarial, which is what got me into governance, documentation, and all of that, meetings. That's how I got into business process and people strategy and all of that. So I've done that pretty much for over 20 years. Yeah, so I would say I would want to approach this from kind of like the point of view of answering questions that people may have on their hearts. How do I start a business? So what should I do? How do I start a business? So I'm going to approach it from the point of view of creating the very best, unforgettable, pleasant user experience. So everyone wants to start a business, but not everybody can work on a business. So you've got to, as Margaret said, you know, when Margaret was speaking, I was taking notes and I was thinking some of the words that popped out kind of like created a platform for me to just go on. So she talked about being on a journey. She talked about process. She talked about due diligence. She talked about flexibility. So when changes happened, she became more flexible. Now we're in coronavirus season, so her usual outlets are shut down. What should she do? Shut down the business? No. Be flexible, make room for changes that keep your business going. So I'm going to approach it from the point of view, how do I even start a business? Can I start a business? Everyone can start a business. But the question is, do you have the dream? Do you have the push? Every business that you start always comes through from the point of what you know, what is natural to you, your natural talents, your interests, what you like to engage in. Yeah, so that's where it starts from. So what can I do? What comes to me naturally? What can I just do with a tap of the fingers without struggling? What can I do that somebody is willing to pay for? Because that's what makes it a business. If nobody is willing to pay for it, it's a hobby. It's not a business. So we're talking strictly now about business. Business is about making profit. But before you make profit, you want to be able to add value. So the second thing is the first question is, can I start a business? Yes, you can. You can start a business. But do you have a dream? What can you do? Who needs it? Can they pay for it? So the next question is, how much time and energy am I willing to put into this business? If I'm not in it for the long haul, can I just start and just play with it? Yes, you can. You can start from wherever you are, like Margaret said. You can try your hands on different things and see what works eventually. But another thing Margaret said, which is kind of tallies into my notes, is she went the whole hog. She took the pains to engage with the people that knew what she needed. She engaged with creating a product. She engaged with the legal angle of things. She engaged with the council to build her product. She made sure that it passed all the quality tests. So the next thing I'm going to say is, having said that the business you start will be from your natural talent, what you can do, what somebody is willing to pay for. But then you have to have the dream, you have to have the push, you have to have the vision, and then you need to have a plan. You can't just have a business without a plan. Margaret did mention that she had a plan. She even had a plan she had written like about, how many years ago did she say? Have a plan, have a plan. Your plan will include what your business is about, who your likely market will be, where they are located, where your business will be located, and how you intend to reach your market. So that takes me to my next point, which is creating the very best user journey. Now, your users are not just your customers. Your users are yourself, your staff, if you have any, your supply chain. That would be the people that are either supplying you your raw materials or are taking your product. If it's a product, they're taking your product from you to the user. So to the final user, the final person that uses your product, whether it's a beauty product or it's food like Maggie's, the people who are eating it don't just get it. Somebody gets it to them. Some people supply you your packaging. Some people supply you the materials, the different things, the recipe and all of that you created. You need to buy stuff to make the food and then give it over to the person that's going to do the eating. So you have to get all of that sorted. So if all your users have a pleasant experience every time they interact with your brand, then they're likely to come back, they're likely to recommend you. So you want to build your business and not just assume that Dr. Akin is going to buy my product because she's my friend, so she's just going to buy it. So I can just produce anything and just give it to her anyhow. No, you have to have a well thought through user journey. So those are project terms. That's what we use in user experience terms. We say you have to think it through and plan. And that would include actually using some psychographic indices to plan your user journey. How do people respond when they see, first of all, my product? Where will they be able to see my product? When they see it, will it jump out at them off the shelf where there are other products? So that's what you want to begin to do. So in doing that, you actually give yourself the opportunity to compete, which is another thing Margaret was talking about. She attended events where she could present her product, she put it on the table, and in the midst of all, I've been at some of those events where there's so many people selling chili sauces, but there was something about her approach, the way she treated people that came to her table, the way she marketed her product. Now that takes me to my next point. You need to know your product, know your service. So some people might be like me, who are not selling a food product or a personal product. They might be selling services. So what I try to do all the time is, whether I'm dealing with the biggies of this world or I'm dealing with an individual, I make sure that every time somebody comes in contact with my service, they have a pleasant experience that makes them feel like they need to talk to me again and again and again and again. So I make sure about that. How do I do that? I look the part. So you can't be selling food and then your advert looks like you're a business consultant like me. So you have to get the experts, taking me to my next point, which is collaboration, 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 collaboration. You cannot do without people. You cannot do without people. You need to engage with the people that will support your business, support your vision, support you from here where you are now, and take you through all the processes to get to there where you want to be. So when I talk about collaboration, people ask, I don't have the money to pay an accountant. I just have 50 pounds, or I just have 10 pounds, or I have nothing. Yes, it's people that will fill in the gaps, whether the gap be that gap of money or the gap of skill. It is people that will help you to fill. So what you need to start doing from today, these are practical things now. What you need to start doing from today is to make up your mind that every time somebody interacts with you, you're going to add value. Because when you add value and you call on the goodwill that you have built with those people, they will oblige you. Nobody will like to oblige somebody who is like a liability. So you don't want to present yourself as a liability all the time. So you might not have money, but you have goodwill. You have a lot of goodwill. So you need to leverage on all your goodwill. Leverage on your goodwill to get what you want. So you look in your network of friends, family, who are the people that trust you and you trust, that are willing to support you no matter what. They will be willing to support you. So start from where you are and get that support. Get an accountant to do your account. Don't assume the skills you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So if you're not an accountant, please, please, please try not to struggle with your accounting. Give it to your closest associate who is able to help you sort it out. If you're in an environment like the United Kingdom, there is support from the council. So by all means, get the support from your local council. There's business support, there's training. Taking me to my next point. Train, upskill. Don't just assume that your household skill is enough to produce a service or a good or a product on the table that just anybody will buy just anyhow. Margaret talked about making sure that her products complied with regulations. That's one area we want to take care of. So you need to know where you're located, where your business is going to be located, what are the local rules and regulations. If you're going to run a business from your home, is it allowed? For instance, if you're going to be running a big manufacturing setup where people are going to come in and out, a lot of people will come in and out. It might not be allowed in your environment. So you need to find that out. So you're not running foul of laws. You need to find that out. You need to get help from online, from your friends, from the council. So next thing, talking about process, you need to streamline your processes so that you're not dissipating energy doing things that do not profit your business. You're doing things that build your business. So you want to know, if I'm running a Shake business and I'm making sauces, I need to engage with people that are making those kind of products, or people that their businesses feed into, or mine feeds into their businesses. Those will be your immediate network, because that's your support system for a small scale business that's starting from home. Now, when you begin to take it to a larger place where you can now begin to talk about looking for investors, you need to have a written plan, a written business plan. You can never go wrong with that. You need to have a written business plan. What does that do for you? It helps you to always go back and look at, why did I start? So when there's a shaking, you go back to it. This is what I set out to do. This is who my market should be. This is how I intend to reach them. This is how I intend to keep them. This is what I will be doing, process. This is what I will be doing to ensure that my customers don't go to the next person. This is who my competitors are. You don't just get into a market and assume that everyone's going to love your product and dump Sainsbury's on. No. You just need to find out what Sainsbury's is doing, what Asda is doing, what Walmart is doing, why they're getting the customers, what are they not doing? That is there a niche there? Can I tap into that? Can that help me to grow my business? Because that's what investors are going to look out for. What are the 4 to 7 things that your business will be doing that will make your business succeed, that makes you hit your chest and say, I'm sure this will work. I'm sure this will work. You can invest in it. That gives your investors the comfort that their capital is safe with you when you put it into writing. But when you just come to somebody, even if the person is your friend, and you just come to person, I need £5,000 to set up this business, They're going to ask you, what do you want to do? Have you checked the market out? Have you tested the market? So you need to research the market, research the industry trends. So where we are now in the world, there's a global pandemic. Everybody is worried, or let me say, everybody started off being worried. And then some people have moved away from being worried to being creative. How? What is going on now? What will people need now? What will people need tomorrow? What will people need next year? What will people need in 10 years' time? So that takes me to my next point. Have a yearly, quarterly, 5-year, 3-year, 10-year plan. Where do you want to take this business in the next 1 year? Where do you want to take it in the next 3 years? Where do you want to take it in the next 10 years? Because that helps you to plan what you need to do to get there. It helps you plan how you will do what you need to do to get there. Collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. So I'm just going to really round up, because I know that people have questions, and I was just going to take 15 minutes to talk. So I'm just going to round up by just kind of doing a reminder of what I said. So we're talking about how you can start a business. Can you start a business from home? Yes. Is your business the kind of business that people will buy into? Will people be willing to pay for your goods or services? If people will be willing to pay for your goods or services, Where are those people? How can you reach them? What plan do you have? What plans do you have to grow your business between now and after COVID-19? Between after COVID-19 and the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, have a plan. Have a plan, have a plan, collaborate. Your users are the people that interact with your business. They could be your supply chain, yourself, everybody that supplies you something that puts your product on the table, or everybody that you interact with to get your service to the end point, and the people that benefit from your service or from your goods. How do you treat them? How do you manage them? How do you anticipate their behavior, their responses to those interactions, those points of interaction with your brand, with your product, with your service? So I think that's what I just like to say. There's so much to say about putting a business together, but I believe as people ask their questions, we can answer any one of the questions, myself or Maggie. And if you would like to reach any one of us on any of the things we've talked about so that we can elaborate, I'm sure Dr. Akin will give you the contacts necessary. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Why don't you type your contact information in the chat so everyone can have access to it? Wow, where do we start? Questions. Let's first of all, you can unmute yourself if you have a question and ask your question. I think Margaret had a question about, what was the question you asked, Margaret?
Indices.
Indices, okay. You can ask her. Go ahead.
Yeah, Funke, you mentioned indices. I didn't even hear the full thing you said. You said indices, what you should know your indices. And I'm like, what is that? What are indices? What did you mean by that? You're not unmuted.
Yeah, unmute yourself.
Yeah, so I think I talked about indices when I was talking about, let me just check my notes. I think I talked about indices when I was talking about the criteria. Another word for that would be criteria. Okay. The criteria against which you test your market, you test your product, the viability of your product or your service. And those will be industry parameters and legal guidelines.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay, so any other questions? Anyone else has a question for either Funke or Margaret?
Yeah, can I just ask a question, please? Oh, sorry, I had my hand raised, but I don't know if people use Zoom and they know that when you have when you raise a hand. Okay, so I get all of that. So I'm sitting down at my desk or whatever in my house. I've got my amazing idea. I've got all of that going. But how do I mean, I know that Margaret talked about just step out, and that seems to be the thing. But that's, what if you don't have, I mean, so I'm thinking, okay, Margaret said she only had like a little amount of money, but if you don't have any support, so I'm thinking, how do you do things like balance your rent, paying your living expenses while you're trying to run a business? I mean, how, that starting point, what do you, I mean, the practical bits, how do I actually start?
Okay, can I answer this? So it's a great question. And in fact, my life in Wales answers that. So when we moved to Wales, we gave up all our jobs and we didn't realize, but it was the start of the recession 2007. So our mortgage holders would not port our mortgage over. So the money that we thought we were going to live on, that we got from selling our house, we had to put to pay for our mortgage here. So when we got here, my husband had to keep going back and forth to Harlow during the week to work so that he could pay the big bills. Meanwhile, there was very little money for food. So in our third week here, while driving around, we found a little farmer's market, and I decided the day I saw it that I was going to start going to the farmer's market. And what could I do? I could cook puff puff, I could make akara, I could make meat pies, and people didn't know them. So I went to the market. I think the first day I made £35. I used about 30 of that money to feed the family that week, and the £5 I put into to make other things. So that, I've said that to you very practically. And what I say to people is it's step by step, it's progressive. You may not be a big business on the first day, but if this is what you want to do, you go step by step. I am so far from that then that when I look at it, I think, how did I survive, or how did we survive? Today, somebody said that the definition of a true entrepreneur is someone who puts their all in it. They put everything on the line, and they're willing to take the risk. If you don't have that behind you, then I would say that it might be safer for you to go and get a job if you can. But if you are called, if you have that entrepreneurial spirit, you'll do what you need to do one step at a time to get there. I hope that helps.
Margaret, is it okay then that, you can do this as a side job? So if you don't, like you said your husband was paying the rent at the time. So if you're a single parent, or you don't have someone who is going to do that for you, it would make sense for you not to quit your job. It would make sense for you to do this as a side business, correct?
I totally agree with that, because shortly after we were here, I had to go and get a job because the money that was coming in was not enough. So yes, you may need to do what you're doing. In fact, because we don't have the time to say it, I've always been in business, but when my kids were growing up, I have looked after my kids all the years, but I have run a business beside looking after my kids. So I did it within the hours when they were not at home. So it was a tiny business sometimes, or it was a lifestyle business, but eventually it strengthened me. I built up the muscles that I needed to for where I am today.
Thank you. Kemi, could you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Yes, I wanted to ask about collaboration. That's something I've always wanted to do in my business. And I have started once, twice, but the business people I want to collaborate with are so iffy, they're afraid, they're thinking, oh, it's my stuff, what are you going to do with it? And it just fizzles out. They do not understand that when we're stronger together. So I think within our community, the Black community, that needs to be taught. How do we go about doing that? Thank you.
Who wants to take?
Can I answer that? Yeah.
Sure.
Can I answer that? Because I talked about collaboration. Yes. Collaboration is not just with anybody. So we're talking about starting a business, running a business, from the smallest level to wherever you want to take it. So in your business, or the kind of business, the industry you want to get into, there are people who have already gone ahead of you and they're doing well. And if there's anyone like that or you can access, that is collaboration. So it's not just collaboration along the lines of just collaborating for collaboration's sake. So there are people who feed into your business. So we're talking specifically about building your business, starting or building your business. So collaborating with your immediate network, people who trust you and will do anything for you. So those are the people you start with. And I used the example of, if you're not an accountant, don't struggle with accounting stuff. So you're not collaborating when you're trying to sell your business to me. That is not collaboration, that's marketing. You're trying to market me. So you're trying to insist that I need your product or your service. That's a hard sell. That's a hard sell. So that's not collaboration. Collaboration can come from there. It can come from there where if Dr. Akin says to me, I need you to support me to build this, build that process, manage my business processes and all of that. And for whatever reason, I don't have the funding now. I know that's what you do professionally, but I can introduce you to XYZ, to Margaret, who needs your services and has the money to pay. So you're leveraging on your network to get what you need to build your business, and you're building their business as well. That is collaboration. That's like, I help you, you help me. It's a win-win. Did that answer your question?
Can I just?
I think what she was saying,
Sorry.
I'm not sure. I think what she was saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kemi, is in certain demographics, in certain communities, like the Black community that she was talking about, like people don't understand the concept. Some people, because we can't really speak in generality, but some people don't understand the concept of collaboration, because when you do go in and you want to say, you know what, we can leverage our skill sets, we can leverage what we have, and we can actually be better and do this together somehow. But people think that you're going to steal their idea. Actually, I don't even really think it's a Black community thing. I think it's pretty general.
Can I just add something?
Steal my idea. So that's what she's talking about. How do we get beyond that?
Can I just say, I just want to add something to the whole collaboration thing. A friend brought this to all of us. So I joined a network, a women's network near me, when I started, well, some years into starting my business. And one of the person in charge of the business had us do this thing about small businesses, and who Funke was saying you have experts. And she said, look at this network. Who has the skills that you're looking for? That is your network, until such a time that you have an accountant, or you can afford an accountant, or you can afford this. Those people in that our network group were like, we began to do collaboration with. But I have a really great example, and Kemi, you're the one asking this. I was introduced by Kemi to the person who designed my brand, and she's currently my brand designer, and I think she's fantastic. And so once she did that for me, I told anybody who would listen about her. But as our relationship developed, I became a mentor to her. So we started swapping services. We didn't swap money, we swapped services. We collaborated, and we collaborate now. If I introduce anyone to her, I get a percentage of what she charges them, because that's what we agreed on in the collaboration. So I think, listening to Funke, I think when you're big conglomerates, you have some of what Funke is talking about at the level we're at. And like you say, with communities where people are not trusting, you have to start with the communities and the networks you have. You have to look around those.
Yeah, thank you. There's a question from Doyin. Doyin says she has a question. Doyin, unmute yourself. I will set, who is this? I will set to Ola. We'll come to you. I see your hand has been up, but on the chat, there's been someone holding too. So Doyin, ask your question.
Good evening. Hi. Well done, Ma. I really got inspired by everything I've heard tonight. I started a brand last year, and I registered this with CAC in Nigeria here. But you said something about getting people who are willing to help you. You need people around. I shouldn't just assume that I can handle things myself. Like, I should trust people to help me handle areas that I cannot handle myself. Now, what should I do when the people that I entrust my business to doesn't take it as serious as I take my business? Because I feel that they wouldn't give it the kind of attention that I would normally give my brand. So I ask you to help me develop something. I ask you to help me design something, and you're telling me you didn't give it a sort of urgency, like the way that you really need to do it. It's something that I will really give an urgency to at that point, but the person didn't do that. So it doesn't mean that I should change my circle of friends, or I should change those people and start looking for people that will really help me build my brand. And my second question also is that if this thing is not working out at the first instance, what should I do? I've had this thing for 1 year and I'm not really getting the progress that I need. The feedback on my development is not really encouraging, and I'm really getting discouraged. Like, what should I do at this point?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm assuming the questions are fired at me. Okay, the first question you had.
Yes.
I would say yes, I wouldn't say change your circle of friends as in change your friends, but change your business support. Change your business support. The key word for collaboration is trust. Trust is like integrity. Nobody is born with it. It is built, it is developed. So over the years, you have developed trust. It may turn out that what you thought was trust is being betrayed, but in business, there are no sentiments. You don't work with people who don't have your business interest at heart. So if you've tested that ground and it didn't work, move away quickly, move away, because it's not going to help you. One of the things, I'll tell you what I do personally. One of the things I do is I look out for serious-minded professional people. So for instance, if I'm engaging with you, and you just contacted me, oh, I need support for my business strategy, you're an individual, even if you're a big company, and I'm engaging with you and you're looking distracted, and you're not keeping eye contact, you're doing something else while I'm talking with you, that's a signal that you cannot be taken seriously. So maybe you need to look out for things like that in choosing who you want to work with, who you want to collaborate with. And that goes for all of us. Always look out for the signs that show that these people are not interested.
All right.
Funke.
Always look out for the signs. The second thing is, if you've started this business and it's not working out, you need to get it checked against the background of what is happening in the industry and where you started from. We talked about having a plan. So you need to go back to the drawing table. Where is your business plan? What did you project for the next 1 year, 2 years? How did you intend to get there? What have you done? What has happened? So that's going to take much more than this time we have. You're probably going to need a one-to-one. You can contact me offline after now, and then we can talk. We can take it from there.
Sounds good. There's somebody on hold. All right, where's that hand? You had your hand up. I can't see it now. Can you just unmute yourself and ask your question, please? Oh yeah, I will set you, please, ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can. Okay, hi, Dr. Hi, it's actually Joke Ushodi. Hi, how are you?
Good.
My question actually is not a question, but to do with what Mrs. Margaret Ogumbanwo said regarding her, at the time there was a recession in the UK. I think she said 2007, and she had to probably start her own business. Now, basically, what I'm getting at here is in an environment such as UK or the United Kingdom or the States, where everything works properly, and you get ideas, you exchange ideas, and you go to the bank or you speak to investors, and everything seems to go, fine. But for us here, because I relocated, I'm here in Nigeria now. I've been here almost 10 years, and I'm faced with a lot of challenges, and I'll explain. Nigeria being a peculiar, if you know what I mean, country, we're faced with so many hidden factors, so many challenges. Like, for example, you're speaking with people you don't know. A lot of people are dishonest. They raise your hopes. Even when you do the plan, you start a business, you're not paid on time, either by the government or whoever, etc., etc. The list is long. But where am I going here is for people like us here with all these challenges, and you want to start your own business. Because I've had a plan before. I've had a business plan. I had so much to do. I wanted to do, but I couldn't just get it off the ground. But I lost a lot of money in the process. But I didn't get it off the ground because you're made to believe to believe that it can't work. And then you're sent to different people who raise your hopes. They buy your ideas, but they don't. And then Nigerians being the way it is, the bank is not helping. There's just so many factors. But my question is, if you understand what I'm trying to say, is for somebody in an environment like ours, what would you advise for people who want to start businesses here with all these obstacles and challenges and the people we meet daily, dishonest and, in fact, I don't want to say too much, but you're not, so at the end of the day, I had to, of course, go back to a full-time paid job, which, fine, at the end of the month, I get paid for it, but I know I could do more, because right now I have how many years to retirement, and I have to start thinking about what's my plan B after retirement. But my question really is, for people in countries like ours here, how do we, overcome all these challenges? There's so many. I don't even know where to start. Thank you.
Hello.
Good question. And Funke and I actually had a conversation about this last night.
That's what I was thinking.
So why don't you start this off?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What I would say is, wherever you are, each environment has its own peculiarities. Even here, that you think everything works like clockwork, it's not just like, Solomon Grundy type of thing for business. Even here, you've got to do the legwork as your environment requires. So it means you have to understand your environment.
Can I interrupt for a minute? Could you start by telling them that you started businesses in Nigeria?
Yes, I was going to come to that. Yeah,
okay.
I just wanted to say, to put out the caveat generally, that you need to know your environment, your peculiar environment, the peculiarities of your environment, and how to mitigate against the risks. That's why you need a business plan. The business plan will do a thorough risk assessment based on where you are, what could go wrong. And you when you're doing a risk assessment, you do the worst case scenario. What if somebody runs away with my money and everything collapses? What do I do? What if the government changes the regulations overnight and I have no recourse? It has happened to me over and over and over again in the same Nigeria. So I happen to understand the Nigerian business terrain, and I can do well in Nigeria regardless of how it is and whichever government is there. The reason is that I have studied the terrain, I have done lessons learned. Joke, when you begin to profit in your business, you will tell people the lessons you have learned. The key word here is, like Margaret said, you have to be willing to go through the process. You shouldn't give up. Don't give up. Be resilient. You have an idea, you have ideas, keep at it. It will work. What you need is the support system of people who have gone ahead of you in the same environment and are doing well. There are lots of people, young people, middle-aged, elderly people doing businesses in Nigeria, and they're doing well. One of the craziest things in Nigeria is the lack of power supply. So we could be on this kind of meeting and something just goes wrong with your power or your internet, and then you lose credibility or something like that. So you have to find how to mitigate against such things. You have to have a plan. Always have a plan, whether you're dealing with government, individual, family, whoever they are. You have to have a plan because you know your terrain. That's what I would say.
And I think, Margaret, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to say hello to Joke Oshodi. This is Margaret Thompson, but also to say that I did go to Nigeria to try and start up my business, and just like Funke is saying, I learned so many things in a short time there. And one of the main things they said to me is you have to be on ground to run a business in Nigeria, which you are. But I didn't understand the the Nigerian situation. So it's true, if I have every intention of going to Nigeria to start a business, but one of the things that I know is I'm going to have to go there with a fair amount of money, and then I'm going to have to go there with the knowledge of the terrain. And Kay said in the notes that paradoxically the huge challenges in Nigeria present huge opportunities, and I think so. I think there are opportunities.
May I just add, sorry, may I just add, this is Kemi.
Kemi. Sorry, it's okay again. Okay, sorry.
It's Kemi. It's Kemi Ishala, sorry. Just like Margaret said right at the end, the problems create great opportunities. I think where anyone who has a business idea and you try, you do whatever you do and it seems to be falling out because no light, no this, you want to remember and consider and indeed think deeply about, and then connect with these people who are running businesses that's thriving in spite of all this trouble. Yeah. However, if you consider to yourself that, well, you know, I'm not in their league, I don't know them, I tried to reach them the first time, second time, 10th time, I couldn't, then maybe your business is a hobby, or you've allowed the trouble, because there are issues in Nigeria to affect you. You can't allow that as a business person. Go and connect with the people who are making it happen. Once you begin to mingle at that level, they will be opening doors for you. They will open, because there are definitely doors for your business to thrive wherever you are on the face of the globe. There isn't any door that can shut against you that you don't want shut against you. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think, Joker, just to round that up, I think anybody who's starting a business needs a coach. Get a coach, get somebody that you can, a business coach, someone that can walk the journey with you, look at your plan, get in contact with Funke after this, and she likes talking to people and about just processes. So maybe get in contact with her. I think I would do that. So hopefully that helps you. And there was one last question and then we're done. And it was, somebody asked a question on the chat about, is it advisable to do business with your family? Is it family? Did you say family and friends or something like that? I think it said family. It was Felicia. Felicia, do you want to ask your question yourself? Because I can't see it anymore. She said, is it advisable to do business with your family? I think that's what it was. So anybody that wants to answer that, go ahead, Margaret.
Okay, so I said my husband did my books for years because like Funke said, when we started this, I couldn't afford an accountant, and my husband knew to do the books basically. Sorry, I don't know what's happened there. And my daughter worked with me for a long time, going to events with me. So if you have family who is supportive, okay. If they're not supportive, you can find friends and people who are supportive there and work with them. But within your business plan, you plan not, that is not a long-term strategy. That is just to help you in the beginning.
I agree. Okay, so I think that's it. I don't see any questions. If I missed your question, please raise your hand before we move. And we have to stop actually. It's one on my end. It's is that 1:10?
It's 2012. Dr. Akin, can I just say something that you said, but you haven't mentioned here? Yes. That's if it's okay for you. Because my skill, because I love cooking and all, Dr. Akin is having me. Yeah. So should I leave you to go on with that now?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about it. Margaret is coming back on our show, if you want to call it that, and she is going to have a whole session on cooking and using the things that you have in your house during this quarantine, whatever you have to